Search and rescue crews continue to look for survivors in the US state of Kentucky, where record flooding has wiped out entire communities. At least 28 people have died, although the state's governor warned the number could rise.
What if one of the oldest, calmest mountain ranges in America suddenly started rising faster than anyone thought possible? The Appalachian Mountains, long believed to be sleeping giants, are now stirring in ways that scientists never expected. And the speed of what's happening has triggered something almost unheard of in geology. A red alert. It began quietly, with satellites orbiting far above the Earth. These weren't ordinary cameras, but synthetic aperture radar systems, able to measure ground elevation shifts down to the millimeter. At first, the readings looked like noise barely noticeable, just tiny vertical movements in the Earth's crust. But as the days passed, a pattern emerged. The crust beneath a massive stretch of the central Appalachians covering parts of West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee had lifted by as much as 12 centimeters. And here's the shocking part: that happened in less than a single week. To put that into perspective, mountains typically rise or erode at rates of millimeters per year. So for this to occur over just a few days is, in geological terms, explosive. It's like watching a mountain range suddenly wake up from a 300 million year nap. And this wasn't an isolated glitch in the data. Each satellite pass confirmed the same unsettling trend. The Appalachians were moving. And moving fast. To understand why this has scientists panicking, you need to know the history of these mountains. Hundreds of millions of years ago, the Appalachians were giants towering as high as the Himalayas. But over time, erosion ground them down into the gentle ridges we see today. For centuries, geologists have taught that the Appalachians were dead. Unlike the volatile Pacific Ring of Fire or volcanic hotspots like Yellowstone, this part of North America was thought to be tectonically quiet, geologically stable, and essentially retired. That's why the sudden uplift has sent shockwaves through the scientific community. It's not just unexpected, it defies decades of conventional wisdom. If a supposedly dormant range like the Appalachians can suddenly come alive, then perhaps nowhere on Earth is truly safe from surprise. And the implications potentially massive, because if the ground here can rise so quickly, what else might be hiding beneath the surface? The scramble to explain what's happening has unleashed a flood of theories. One of the leading ideas is that a hot plume of mantle molten rock, rising from deep within the Earth, is pushing upward on the crust. This is the kind of activity we associate with volcanic zones, like the East African Rift or Yellowstone. But the Appalachians, that's like discovering a campfire roaring inside a block of ice. Another possibility is something called delamination. In this process, the lower crust peels away and sinks into the mantle, forcing the remaining crust to spring upward, almost like a mattress rebounding after weight is removed. This has been observed in the Andes and Sierra Nevada, but never before in the eastern US. And then there are the more speculative whispers. Could this uplift be a prelude to something larger? A tectonic shift that might eventually split the continent? No one has answers yet. What we do know is that every explanation carries consequences far beyond the Appalachian Mountains themselves. The most immediate fear isn't volcanoes or rifts, it's earthquakes. The Appalachians aren't famous for seismic activity. But what most people don't realize is that hidden beneath the rolling hills are ancient fault lines, poorly mapped and largely ignored. These faults have been locked for eons, but rapid crustal uplift injects stress directly into them. Already, seismographs have recorded a noticeable uptick in microquakes, teeny tremors, too small for people to feel, but clear signs that pressure is building. And history has shown that even regions thought to be safe can unleash devastating quakes when those ancient faults finally give way. If you live in cities like Roanoke, Charleston, or Knoxville, this suddenly isn't just theory. The very ground beneath your feet may be under pressure in ways no one saw coming. And the unsettling part: scientists don't yet know how much stress these mountains can take before they snap. Beyond the science, there's the human cost. Much of the eastern US has been built under the assumption of geological stability. Highways, bridges, pipelines, and power lines all depend on the ground staying exactly where it is. But sudden uplift, that changes everything. Water systems are at risk too. Even slight changes in land elevation can redirect rivers, shift aquifers, or stress dams. The Appalachian region is home to countless reservoirs and hydroelectric facilities, not to mention major waterways like the Tennessee River. A few centimeters of uplift might sound trivial, but when you're talking about river systems that supply millions, it's the difference between stability and disaster. And unlike storms or floods, which we can see coming, this is silent, invisible. The kind of danger that can reshape entire communities without a single warning. Looking back, there may have been hints all along. Over the last decade, scattered reports described odd phenomena, sudden cracks in the ground, unusual radon emissions, small tremors in places with no known fault lines. For years, scientists dismissed them as random noise-isolated events with no deeper meaning. But now, in the light of this uplift, those scattered anomalies are being re-examined. Were they early signs of a brewing geological shift? Even local traditions are being reinterpreted. Some indigenous oral histories describe the Appalachians as sleeping giants, restless when balance is disturbed. For generations, these stories were seen as mythology. But now, scientists are asking, could there be echoes of real geological memory hidden in those ancient tales? The past may have been whispering all along. We just didn't know how to listen. The Appalachians aren't the only ancient mountains. On Earth, Russia has the Urals, Scandinavia has the Caledonides. None of them are showing this kind of activity. So why here? Why now? One idea is that the North American plate itself is changing under hidden forces. Stress from the mid-ridge, thousands of miles away, could be warping the plate's interior. Another possibility is plate flexure, where entire regions of crust slowly bow and bend under shifting internal pressures. If that's the case, then what's happening in Appalachia might not be unique. It could be the first sign of broader tectonic unrest across the so-called stable heart of North America, meaning the Appalachians may just be the beginning. Right now, no one can say for sure what's coming. That's why agencies like NASA, NOAA, and the USGS have mobilized some of the most advanced monitoring systems ever deployed in the eastern US satellites. Drones, GPS networks, and deep borehole sensors are all focused on the Appalachians. Recording every twitch of the Earth, the data keeps piling in. And instead of slowing down, the uplift is continuing slower than the initial spike, yes, but still rising. That steady climb has ruled out easy explanations like groundwater withdrawal or seasonal shifts. Which leaves us with bigger, harder questions. Is this a precursor to a new tectonic phase? Could it spark a chain of quakes across the eastern US? Or is it simply a strange anomaly that will eventually fade back into silence? No one knows, and that uncertainty is exactly why the red alert remains in place. For centuries, the Appalachians have been symbols of stillness, ancient hills, worn smooth by time, but the ground is moving, and the message is clear. Nothing on Earth is ever truly dormant. Whether this uplift marks the dawn of a new mountain-building era or a temporary pulse from the deep, it's a reminder that the Earth we walk on is alive. Beneath every quiet ridge and rolling valley lies a restless force, waiting for its moment to rise. The question isn't whether the Appalachians are awake, it's whether we're ready for what comes next. The scramble to explain what's happening has unleashed a flood of theories. One leading idea is that a hot plume of mantle-molten rock rising from deep within the Earth is pushing upward on the crust. This kind of activity is usually seen in volcanic regions, but Appalachia, that's like discovering fire under a block of ice. Another possibility is delamination. Imagine the lower crust peeling away and sinking into the mantle, while the lighter upper crust bounces upward like a spring. This has been observed in South America and California, but never in the eastern US. And then there are the more speculative whispers. Could this be the first stirrings of a new continental rift? Could North America itself be preparing to split? What theory do you think makes the most sense? Mantle plume, delamination, or something no one has even thought of yet. The most immediate fear isn't volcanoes, it's earthquakes. The Appalachians aren't known for massive quakes, but beneath their surface lie countless ancient fault lines, unmapped and barely understood. Rapid uplift pumps stress into these cracks, priming them for sudden slips. Seismographs already show an increase in micro-Quaxtony tremors that could be the Earth's way of clearing its throat before something bigger. So here's the chilling question: what happens if one of these forgotten faults suddenly snaps? Would cities like Charleston or Knoxville be ready? If you live anywhere near Appalachia, would you prepare for an earthquake even if experts once said it could never happen there? Beyond the science, there's the human cost. Highways, pipelines, power lines, all of it was built on the assumption that Appalachia would stay quiet. But with the ground shifting beneath them, that assumption is gone. Water systems are another hidden risk. Rivers can change course. Dams can strain. Aquifers can crack. Search and rescue crews continue to look for survivors in the US state of Kentucky, where record flooding has wiped out entire communities. At least 28 people have died, although the state's governor warned the number could rise. A sudden and unexpected geological phenomenon has sparked alarm across the scientific community, as satellite imaging has revealed an unusual and rapid uplift occurring deep within the Appalachian Mountains. This ancient range, known more for its steady erosion and long geological stillness than for violent upheaval, is now showing signs of accelerated vertical movement, a development that has led geologists to issue a rare red alert. This level of warning is almost unheard of in the context of the Appalachian, a region historically considered geologically stable. But the data is undeniable. The crust is rising, and it's happening fast. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The alarm was first triggered when a sequence of synthetic aperture radar SAR satellite passes over the eastern United States, registered subtle but significant changes in ground elevation. These satellites, equipped with advanced capabilities, can detect vertical land movement down to millimeter precision. Over the course of several days, a pattern emerged. The crust beneath a wide swath of the central Appalachian region, including areas spanning West Virginia, and parts of eastern Kentucky and Tennessee, had risen by as much as 12 centimeters in less than a week. In geological terms, this is nothing short of explosive. Such rapid uplift is not characteristic of the Appalachian Range, which has been in a long passive phase for hundreds of millions of years. Formed during the Paleozoic era, the mountains once rivaled the Himalayas in size, but have since been worn down into gentle slopes and rounded ridges through eons of erosion. That makes this recent activity not just unexpected, but potentially transformative. The phenomenon suggests that forces deep beneath the crust, long thought dormant in this region, may be stirring once again. Geologists are now questioning the stability of the tectonic forces underlying the eastern seaboard of North America. The Appalachian Mountains sit atop a deeply buried and ancient collision zone, remnants of the supercontinent Pangaea. These old sutures have been locked for hundreds of millions of years, but the possibility that they could be reactivating carries significant geological consequences. One leading hypothesis centers on mantle dynamics. Some researchers believe that a buoyant plume of hot mantle material could be rising beneath the lithosphere, exerting upward pressure on the crust and causing it to flex and lift. This kind of movement has been observed in places like the Yellowstone caldera and the East African Rift, areas known for active volcanism or continental rifting. That such a process could be occurring beneath the Appalachian, long considered tectonically dead, challenges decades of conventional thinking. Another possibility is related to the phenomenon of delamination, in which the lower crust or mantle lithosphere peels away from the overlying rock and sinks into the mantle, prompting the remaining crust to rebound and rise. This has been observed in the Sierra Nevada and parts of the Andes, but never before confirmed in the eastern US. If such a process is now unfolding beneath the Appalachian, it could mark the beginning of a major reconfiguration of the regions. Geological architecture. Even more speculative, but impossible to ignore, is the idea that this uplift might pre-cage deeper, more dangerous seismic activity. Though the Appalachian region is not known for frequent or high-magnitude earthquakes, there are fault systems running through the area, many of which are poorly mapped and only partially understood. Rapid crustal movement introduces stress into these ancient faults, potentially setting the stage for slip events. Already seismographs in the region have recorded a noticeable uptick in microseismicity, tiny tremors that could be a harbinger of larger quakes to come. Compounding the concern is the breadth of the uplift zone. This is not a localized anomaly, such as one might expect from subsurface fluid injection or natural gas extraction, which are known to cause surface deformation. Instead, the uplift is distributed across a broad geological footprint, suggesting a deep-seated and systemic force at work that has major implications not just for geologists, but also for urban planners, infrastructure experts, and emergency management officials across the eastern United States. Many towns and cities lie within or near the affected region, including Charleston, Roanoke, and Knoxville. Places where population centers and critical infrastructure could be vulnerable if the uplift accelerates or triggers seismic activity. Bridges, highways, pipelines, and power lines built under the assumption of geological stability are now potentially at risk. The red alert issued by geological authorities is meant not only as a scientific signal, but also as a call to preparedness. Water systems could also be affected. Ground uplift can alter the flow of rivers and aquifers, potentially leading to flooding in some areas and water shortages in others. Uplift changes watershed topography, and even subtle shifts can divert streams or stress dam systems. The Appalachian region is home to numerous reservoirs, hydroelectric facilities, and major river systems like the Tennessee and New Rivers. Any long-term vertical movement could fundamentally reshape these water systems in ways that could take years or decades to fully grasp. Adding to the urgency, the satellite-detected uplift has continued to trend upward since its initial detection. Each subsequent satellite pass adds to the growing body of data, suggesting the motion is not leveling off, but rather continuing, albeit at a slightly slower rate than the initial spike. This steady rise contradicts early theories that it might be an elastic response to seasonal changes, glacial isostatic adjustment, or groundwater extraction. The pace, direction, and uniformity of the uplift all point toward a deeper geodynamic process. If mantle dynamics are at play, one consequence could be the gradual weakening of the lithosphere in this region. Over time, this could lead to the formation of a rift, a split in the continental crust that, while not likely to occur overnight, could profoundly affect the geological map of eastern North America over millions of years. The appearance of rift-related features such as linear faulting, volcanism, or increased seismicity would signal a tectonic regime change unlike anything the region has seen in 500 million years. There's also the question of how this event fits into the larger narrative of global tectonics. Other ancient mountain ranges, such as the Urals in Russia or the Kiehtanides in Scandinavia, have shown no similar signs of renewed tectonic activity. So why the Appalachians? Some geologists speculate that the North American plate may be undergoing subtle changes in its stress regime, possibly influenced by distant subduction zones or shifting boundary conditions near the mid-Atlantic ridge. These changes might be reactivating long-buried weaknesses in the continental interior. Whatever the cause, this event is redefining how scientists think about so-called passive regions of Earth's crust. The notion that ancient eroded mountain belts are permanently dormant is being challenged by this unfolding episode. It's a stark reminder that even landscapes which appear tranquil on the surface can conceal powerful tectonic forces biding their time in the deep earth. The timing of the uplift has also caught attention. Over the last decade, there have been scattered reports of odd geological activity in the region. Increased radon gas emissions in certain valleys, minor tremors that don't align with known fault systems, and the occasional appearance of new fractures or ground fissures. Until now, These events were mostly dismissed as isolated anomalies. But in light of the new Uplift data, geologists are revisiting these occurrences with fresh eyes, searching for connections that may have been overlooked. Another facet drawing intense scrutiny is the thermal profile of the region. Satellite-based infrared surveys and ground-based geothermal sensors are now being cross-referenced with Uplift data to determine whether a thermal anomaly is present beneath the crust. An uptick in subsurface heat could suggest the presence of an upwelling mantle plume or localized magmatic body, either of which would significantly raise the stakes of this geological event. Preliminary temperature readings from deep boreholes appear to show slight deviations from historical averages, not enough to confirm active magmatism, but enough to warrant further investigation. This new activity is also igniting debate over the role of isostatic rebound in the Appalachian uplift. Some researchers suggest that post-glacial rebound, the slow rise of the crust after the melting of massive Ice Age glaciers, could still be affecting this region. Yet, this theory has limitations. Most post-glacial uplift has already slowed to near imperceptible levels across North America, particularly in regions like the Central Appalachians, which were only marginally glaciated to begin with. The scale and speed of the current uplift appear to exceed what would be expected from isostatic adjustment alone. Even as scientists race to understand the origins of the uplift, they are also preparing for its possible consequences. The Red Alert has mobilized geological monitoring teams, accelerated funding for deep Earth imaging studies, and prompted emergency drills in some of the larger urban centers within the uplift zone. A coordinated response involving the USGS, NOAA,